If someone had told me a year ago that I'd one day be standing outside a bathroom, heart pounding, with my straight best friend just beyond a fogged up shower door, I would have laughed. Brushed it off as some silly fantasy born out of loneliness. But now, thinking back, maybe the signs were always there. Tiny moments I'd ignored. Things I'd buried behind jokes or drowned in silence. The kind that fear creates. Jake and I had been best friends since ninth grade. We met in history class, both of us failing the same pop quiz and laughing our way through detention that afternoon. From then on, we were nearly inseparable. He was everything I wasn't. Outgoing, athletic, confident. Jake fit into every room like he belonged there. Me? I was quieter, the kind of guy who faded into the background unless someone needed homework help or a ride home. Still, something just clicked between us. Our friendship grew out of late-night drives, shared jokes, weekend gaming marathons, and sleepovers at each other's places. And somewhere between those movie nights and gym sessions, the shirtless summers, and wrestling matches that lingered too long, I started to feel something. Something more than friendship. Something I didn't want to admit, not to him, and definitely not to myself. I told myself it didn't matter. Jake was straight. He dated girls, lots of them. He always had some new story about the one who ghosted him, or the one who kept texting him at 3 a.m. It became our ritual, him talking, me listening, nodding, pretending not to care. But every time he smiled about someone else, I felt this quiet ache in my chest. Still, I never said a word. How could I? Why risk everything we had over a feeling I wasn't even sure was real? He never hinted at anything more than friendship. At least, not until recently. There were a few strange moments I couldn't stop thinking about. Like the time we went swimming last month, and he swam up behind me, resting his hands on my shoulders longer than he needed to. Or when he crashed at my place after a party and, despite the spare bed being empty, climbed under the covers with me like it was nothing. We didn't talk about it the next day. But those moments haunted me. Maybe I was imagining things. Or maybe I just wanted to believe there was more. That night, the night everything shifted, started out like any other. We'd hit the gym after work, barely breaking a sweat, mostly laughing and racing each other on the treadmill like we were still teenagers. Afterward, we grabbed takeout and headed back to my place. Lately, it had become normal for Jake to crash at mine. He'd toss his gym bag by the door, claim the couch like it was his, and I'd pretend it didn't mean anything. But it did. I loved having him there, even if it made everything harder. The way his laugh echoed in my tiny apartment, the way he sprawled out like he belonged. It filled a kind of silence I didn't know I'd been living with. We threw on a movie, though we talked, over most of it. When it ended, neither of us moved. Jake sat there, one leg tucked under him, his arm draped behind me on the couch, close enough that I could feel the warmth of his skin. "You mind if I shower?" he asked, stretching with a lazy grin. His t-shirt lifted just enough to reveal a strip of toned abs. I blinked, distracted. Yeah, go ahead. Towels are in the usual spot." "Cool," he said, grabbing his bag. Then he gave me a smirk. "Don't miss me too much." I rolled my eyes. "Yeah, I'll cry the whole time." He laughed and disappeared into the bathroom. A second later, I heard the water running. I stared at the blank TV screen, my thoughts anything but still. The sound of water hitting tile filled the apartment. Steam curled under the door, and I pictured him behind the curtain, water sliding down his back, his body softened by mist. I shook my head, trying to push the image away, but it wouldn't leave. Lately, it never did. Frustrated, I got up and wandered the apartment, searching for something to ground me. But nothing helped. My heart thudded in my chest, my hands clammy. I muttered a curse under my breath, annoyed with myself for feeling this way. Then I heard it. "Hey," Jake called from inside the bathroom, voice muffled but clear. "Can you toss me a towel? I forgot to grab one." I froze. My eyes darted to the door. Yeah," I called back, trying to sound normal. I grabbed a towel from the cabinet and stepped toward the bathroom. The steam was thicker now, like it was trying to escape. I stopped outside the door, the towel clutched in my hand. "Just push it open," Jake said. It's not locked. I hesitated. You sure? Dude, come on, he laughed. It's not like we haven't seen each other naked. Locker rooms, remember? Right, I muttered, trying not to think about how those moments had affected me back then. Swallowing hard, I reached for the doorknob and opened the door slowly. Steam poured out, fogging my glasses, wrapping around me like a wave. The heat hit immediately, thick, damp, and overwhelming. I just stood there, towel in hand, letting the scent of his body wash sink in. Over here, Jake called casually. I stepped in just enough to see his outline through the half-closed shower curtain. His figure was blurred, but still unmistakably him. Tall, toned, relaxed. I held out the towel, my hand trembling slightly. He reached for it, his fingers brushing mine, warm, wet, and for a moment they lingered. Just a second longer than they needed to, and in that moment something shifted, subtle but real. But, he said, his voice quieter now, different. I tried to step back, to pull away, to turn and leave before I did something I couldn't take back. But then I heard him again. Hey, you okay? Because he was right. I had been weird, distant, jumpy. And now, standing here, heat swirling between us, his fingers still brushing mine, though he'd already let go, I finally understood why. This moment. This was why I couldn't walk away. The feel of his skin still lingered on mine like a quiet burn, impossible to ignore. The shower was still running, but it sounded distant now. A dull backdrop to the roar of my own heartbeat. You've been weird lately, Jake repeated, softer this time. His tone wasn't judgmental, it was thoughtful, careful, almost concerned. Not bad weird, just distant, like your head's always somewhere else. I swallowed hard, but my mouth was dry. I couldn't see his face clearly through the steam, but I could feel his eyes on me, watching, waiting. I didn't know what to say. What could I say? The truth would change everything, and I didn't know if we could survive that. He waited. Then he sighed gently. If it's something I did, you can tell me. It's not you, I blurted. You didn't do anything wrong. Then what is it? His voice was closer now. I looked up. The curtain had been pulled back. Not all the way, just enough to see a sliver of his shoulder, the slope of his chest slick with water, the outline of his face through the haze. There was no teasing grin this time. Just quiet curiosity. And something else in his eyes. Something I couldn't name. I can't, I whispered, my voice rough. It's complicated. His brow furrowed. Complicated how? I hesitated again, fear tightening my chest. Fear that if I said the words, the air between us would shatter. That he'd back away, grab his towel, and leave, and take everything we were with him. But he didn't move. He just stood there, dripping, patient, like he always was when I needed time to find the right words, and suddenly I was just tired of hiding. I like you, I said. It was barely a whisper. I didn't even know if he'd heard it until I saw it. The flicker in his eyes, the tiny shift in his expression, the way his lips parted, just slightly. Time stretched unbearably long in the silence that followed. I couldn't breathe. I like you, I said again, louder this time, steadier. Like saying it again might make it less terrifying. Not as a friend, not because I'm lonely, not as a joke, I've been trying to ignore it, but I can't anymore. His eyes searched mine, and still he didn't speak. He didn't laugh. He didn't step back or shut me out. He let the water fall over him in silence, letting my words settle like rain soaking through dry, cracked earth. You really feel that way? He asked finally, his voice low. I nodded, barely able to move. I didn't mean for it to happen, I said. I didn't want it to, but yeah, I do. He was quiet again. The steam between us curled like smoke from a slow-burning fire. And then, to my absolute disbelief, he reached back and shut off the water. The sudden silence was sharp. Only the faint hiss of steam remained, and the soft creak of the curtain rings. Then he pulled the curtain back. He stood there, wet skin glowing in the golden light, water still trailing down his body. The towel hung untouched on the rack. His eyes never left mine. He didn't move to cover himself, didn't break the moment. If anything, it felt like he was drawing closer without taking a single step. I had a feeling, he said. I blinked. What? I had a feeling, he repeated. The way you've been acting, the way you look at me sometimes. I didn't want to assume, but he stopped himself, then smiled softly. I'm not blind. My breath caught. So, you're not angry? He shook his head. No, I'm not angry. He stepped forward, bare feet quiet on the tile. Now there was nothing between us. No curtain, no jokes, no distractions, just honesty, bare, and a little terrifying. But I am curious, he said. I swallowed. Curious about what? He paused. How long you felt this way, why you never told me. He hesitated again. And what happens next? My chest tightened. I didn't know how to respond. Relief, fear, hope, confusion. They all crashed into each other, making it hard to think. I didn't tell you because I was scared, I admitted. I thought it'd ruin everything. Did it? He asked quietly. I don't know yet. Jake's lips tugged into the faintest smile. Then, finally, he reached for the towel and wrapped it around his waist. But his gaze never left mine. He stepped closer, so close I could feel the heat of his skin, the scent of soap still clinging to him. You're my best friend, he said gently. That doesn't change just because you feel something more. He took a breath. But if you're going to be honest with me, then I should be honest with you too. I stared at him, confused. What do you mean? He looked nervous now, like he was searching for the right words. I've never thought about guys that way, he said slowly. But lately, I don't know, I've been thinking about you, wondering. He trailed off. Wondering what? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. His eyes met mine, open and unsure. Wondering if maybe this thing between us isn't just one-sided. The room tilted slightly. I couldn't speak. Then he leaned in, not enough to kiss me, but enough to feel the space between us change. And I don't know what that means, he continued, but I don't want to ignore it either. He reached out, his fingers brushing against mine. Gentle, uncertain, testing. Is this okay? He asked. I nodded, unable to form words. His hand curled around mine, warm, steady. The air between us was thick, heavy with something unspoken. Steam still clung to the walls, but the heat now was something else entirely. Jake's eyes stayed on mine, soft and searching, waiting for me to speak, to breathe, to be. But what could I say? Nothing would ever be enough to measure the weight of what had just passed between us. I opened my mouth, then closed it again. My thoughts were a mess, colliding, overlapping, none of them clear enough to say out loud. And yet, despite the storm in my head, my body felt calm. Not relaxed exactly, but still. Like something deep inside me had finally anchored itself, to him, to his touch, to the way his breath trembled against my skin. He hadn't pulled away. He hadn't recoiled or laughed or looked at me with confusion. He had leaned in. He had kissed me. Jake finally spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. You okay? I nodded, maybe a little too quickly. My throat was dry, tight, but I managed a quiet reply. Yeah, I think so. His expression didn't change, but something in his eyes softened, like he saw straight through me and wasn't afraid of what he found. I didn't mean to scare you, he said gently. I had to know. I'm not scared, I told him, my voice steadier this time. Just surprised. Jake let out a short laugh, running a hand through his damp hair. Yeah, well, that makes two of us. I leaned back against the wall, the cool tile a sharp contrast to the warmth still clinging to my skin. The mirror behind him was completely fogged over, and I realized we'd been in here for longer than I thought. But outside this small, humid room, the rest of the world felt far away. So, I said, drawing out the word, unsure what came next. What now? Jake stepped closer again, slow, unhurried, like he didn't want to leave the moment either. He reached out, gently brushing a stray drop of water from my shoulder. The touch was feather-light, but it sent a ripple through me. I don't know, he admitted. I've been thinking about this, about you, for a while now, and it scared the hell out of me. But tonight, seeing you like that, seeing how you looked at me, I couldn't pretend anymore. I thought you were straight, I said quietly, the words falling out before I could stop them. Jake gave a crooked smile, unsure but honest. Yeah, so did I. Maybe I still am, I don't know. But I do know what I felt when I kissed you, and it wasn't nothing. My breath caught. He meant it. He wasn't playing along. He wasn't confused, he said. Wouldn't you have? I asked. He paused, then nodded. A few months ago, maybe. But not now. He took another step, and suddenly we were nearly touching again, just like before. I'm not freaking out, he said. I'm standing in your bathroom, wrapped in a towel, after kissing you. And all I'm thinking is, why the hell did it take me so long to figure this out? I laughed, really laughed. And it felt good, real. The tension had shifted. It was still there, but now it was charged with something different. Something heavier with possibility. Do you want to go back out there? I asked, smiling. Or just stay in here forever, where it's steamy and weird and we don't have to explain anything to anyone? Jake grinned. Tempting, but your shampoo is starting to burn my eyes. I reached over and handed him a towel, and for the first time in what felt like forever, we moved around each other without that thick cloud of tension hanging between us. There was still so much unsaid. I knew this wasn't over, and I was right, because as we got dressed in my room, something in the air shifted again. It wasn't awkward, it was weighted, an unspoken understanding between two people who had just crossed a line they couldn't uncross, and didn't want to. Jake moved slowly, pulling his shirt over his head, then sitting on the edge of the bed, towel still in his hands, running it through his damp hair. You know, he said, glancing over at me, I always thought we had something different, even back in high school. I just never put a name to it. I sat down beside him, close but not quite touching. What changed? I asked. He turned to look at me. His face was softer than I'd ever seen it, open. You did, he said. Or maybe I did. Maybe I just stopped lying to myself. A hush fell between us again, but this time it felt like the pause before something new begins. Like the held breath before a first step. He reached out, brushing his fingers against mine. I didn't flinch. I turned my hand and laced our fingers together, slowly, deliberately. His skin was still warm, slightly damp, his thumb drawing small, soothing circles against mine. I'm scared, I said quietly, that this is just curiosity for you, that when it fades, I'll lose you. Jake's grip tightened, just enough to feel it. I don't know exactly what this is yet, he said honestly, but I do know it's not just curiosity. It's not some phase, and I'm not going anywhere. I believed him, but nothing prepared me for what came next. He leaned back slightly, propping himself up on one elbow, still toweling off his hair. And just like that, the world tilted. Everything looked the same. My room, the hum of the ceiling fan, the faint sounds of the street below, but nothing felt familiar. There was a weight in the air now, low on his hips, droplets of water still glistening faintly on his skin. But more than that, it was the way he looked at me. Not constantly, not obviously, but often enough, like he wanted to say something but wasn't sure he should. I didn't speak either. I pretended to be distracted, fiddling with the hem of my shirt, thoughts swirling too loudly in my head. Then Jake broke the silence. You keep looking at me like you think I'm going to disappear. I blinked, caught off guard. What? He turned toward me, meeting my gaze this time. Like you don't believe this is real. Like you're waiting for me to take it back. I swallowed hard, because he was right. Can you blame me? No, he said gently. And then, even softer. But I meant what I said. I'm not going anywhere. I nodded slowly, then paused. The next words burned the back of my throat. I just don't know how far this goes, I admitted. Or if I'm the only one feeling it, this strongly. Jake shifted on the bed, turning to face me fully now, his expression different, serious in a way I'd only seen when something really mattered to him. "It's not just you," he said. "Trust me." I looked at him, searching his face for doubt, for hesitation, but there was none. His gaze was steady, grounding, unwavering, and for the first time that night, I let myself believe, really believe, that maybe this wasn't just in my head. Suddenly he stood, not abruptly, not like he was running, but like he couldn't sit still a second longer. He crossed the room toward me. I was still half turned, standing near the closet, like I hadn't fully decided whether to stay or leave. My heart felt caught in limbo until he stopped in front of me, close enough that I could feel the leftover heat of the shower clinging to his skin. He reached out, fingers brushing my arm lightly before settling at my waist. "Can I?" he asked. The words were so quiet they nearly got lost in the thick silence between us. I nodded. My heart rattled inside my chest like a stone in a glass jar. His hand moved, slow and warm, sliding up beneath the hem of my shirt. I gasped. Not from surprise, but from how good it felt, like his touch reached past skin and straight into something buried and tender inside me, like I was something fragile, something worth holding. His other hand lifted to my cheek, tilting my face until I was looking right at him. There was that searching look again in his eyes, like he was trying to make sure this was real, for both of us. "You're shaking," he murmured. "I know," I whispered. "I don't mean to." "It's okay," he said softly, and leaned forward, pressing his forehead gently against mine. "I am too." That surprised me. Jake was always the confident one, the guy who could flirt without blinking, who could laugh off anything that got too serious. But here, in this moment, he was just as raw as I was, just as uncertain, and that somehow made it all feel safer. He kissed me again, and this time, it wasn't cautious. It wasn't testing or tentative. It was intentional. It was tender. His lips moved over mine like he was memorizing the feel of me, like he wanted to remember this moment exactly, in case it never happened again. My hands found his shoulders, then the back of his neck, and I pulled him closer, not out of panic, not from fear, but because it felt right, like this was what we were always meant to be. But the wildest part hadn't even happened yet, because when he pulled back slightly, his breath warm against my lips, he whispered, "I've wanted this longer than I realized." I didn't respond. I couldn't. I just leaned in and kissed him again. And this time, we didn't stop. Jake's hands moved across my skin, not greedy, not rushed, but reverent, like he was exploring something he didn't want to break. Every brush of his fingers lit my nerves like sparks, and still his touch felt careful, curious, nervous even, but steady. I could feel the way his hands would pause, hesitate, and then continue. The slight tremble in his grip, the soft, shallow catch in his breath when I pressed my lips to his collarbone. We moved toward the bed without speaking, each step a question, each touch an answer. I laid back on the mattress, and he followed, bracing himself above me with his arms on either side. His eyes never left mine. He looked unreal like that, his hair still damp, his chest rising and falling, breath quick but not hurried. His expression soft but filled with something deeper, something burning. "Tell me if you want to stop," he said again. And I could tell. He meant it, every word. I didn't answer with words, I didn't need to. I just reached up and pulled him down into another kiss. And in that moment, the rest of the world fell away. Everything felt new, but not in the awkward, fumbling way firsts often do. It was new in the way you realize something that's been there all along, just beneath the surface, waiting to be seen, waiting to be felt, waiting to become. It wasn't perfect. There were moments of awkward laughter when we bumped knees, or when he nearly kneed me trying to shift positions. But none of that mattered. What mattered was the way he held me, the way he looked at me, like I mattered, like he wanted this just as much as I did. The longer we stayed wrapped up in each other, the more the fear began to fade. It ebbed away with every breath, replaced by the steady rhythm of his heartbeat and the grounding weight of his body against mine. Then, all at once, we paused. The silence between us was no longer uncertain. It was full, heavy with everything we weren't saying, charged with unspoken thoughts pressing against the dam of restraint we'd both held up for too long. Jake's hand was still in mine, our fingers locked, not like we were holding hands, but like we were holding on to something fragile and burning all at once. His grip was firmer now. Sure. His thumb brushed across my knuckles, not by accident, not shy anymore, but with intention. We weren't teetering anymore. We were standing right at the edge, breath caught, hearts pounding, daring the other to make the final move. I didn't know who leaned in first. Maybe we both did. Maybe it didn't matter. All I knew was that 1 second, space still existed between us, and the next, it didn't. Jake's lips found mine, not like the first time, not hesitant or questioning. This was different. This was decided. Real. Certain. It was a kiss that said he knew, and he wanted this. Whatever had been unraveling in him all night had suddenly snapped into place, and I responded like I'd been holding my breath for years. My hands reached for him, one cupping his jaw, the other tangling in his damp hair as I pulled him in deeper. His mouth opened against mine, and I kissed him like I'd been starving, like I'd buried this part of myself for so long, and now it was finally free. He made a soft sound against my lips, and I felt the way he trembled just slightly. That small tremor, that honest human thing, it made me fall even harder. I had never seen him like this, never imagined he'd look at me with this kind of intensity, like I wasn't just someone he wanted to know, but someone he needed to feel. And when he pressed me back fully against the bed, settling over me, something inside me finally went quiet. Not from fear, not from uncertainty, but from that aching, terrifying kind of peace that comes when something you never thought you could have becomes real. His hands found my sides, bracketing me gently. His weight was steady, protective, and when he looked down at me, his face was open, honest, no walls left. "I've never done this before," he said softly, his voice barely more than a breath. "I know," I replied, brushing my fingers across his cheek. "It's okay." He exhaled shakily, lowering his forehead to mine again. "But I want to." My heart flipped in my chest. I nodded. "Me too." We moved together slowly after that, guided not by experience, but by emotion, by trust, by us. Instinctively, his kisses grew deeper. His touch became bolder, but always wrapped in care, in this quiet awareness that made sure I felt everything, and nothing ever hurt. It wasn't perfect. There were awkward shifts, nervous hands fumbling, breathless laughs between kisses. But none of that mattered. In fact, those clumsy parts, they didn't feel clumsy at all. They felt real, honest, beautiful. And when we finally crossed that line, the one we'd been skirting for what felt like forever, it wasn't rushed. It wasn't forced. It was raw, powerful, overwhelming in the best possible way. Jake held me like I was something precious. His breath came in uneven bursts near my ear, and he whispered my name like it grounded him, like it meant something more now. I gave myself over to him, not just physically, but emotionally. Every part of me opened up in ways it never had before. And I can tell you honestly, it was incredible. I saw him differently after that. Not just as my best friend, not just the guy I'd quietly loved for years, but as someone brave enough to step into the unknown with me, even if it scared him. Someone who didn't need all the answers to know that being near me was worth the risk. Afterward, we didn't speak right away. We just lay there, tangled up in each other, skin against skin, breath still shaky, the sheets twisted around our legs. Jake's hand rested on my chest, his thumb drawing soft circles over my heart. His face was tucked into my shoulder, his breathing steady and warm. I didn't want to move, not ever. After what felt like forever, he finally whispered, "So, that just happened." I laughed softly, my fingers sliding into his hair. "Yeah, it did." Then I added, "And to be honest, it kinda hurt." He lifted his head, blinking, and then grinned that boyish grin I'd always loved. But now there was something different. "I don't know what this means," he said, voice low, "but I'm not sorry." "Me neither," I replied. He leaned down and kissed me again, slower this time, unhurried, like we had all the time in the world. And maybe we did, because something had shifted, something permanent. There was no going back, not after that night. The morning after felt like waking up in a different world. Jake's arm was still draped over my waist, his breathing warm against the back of my neck, and the silence in the room didn't feel uncertain. It felt full of something soft, something real. I didn't move, just lay there, watching the sunlight filter through the blinds, trying to hold on to the feeling of him. The way he'd held me like he didn't want to let go. The way he'd whispered my name like it was sacred. Eventually, Jake stirred behind me. His arm tightened briefly, then his lips brushed my shoulder. "You awake?" he murmured, voice rough with sleep. "Yeah," I whispered, heart fluttering. He didn't say anything at first, just sighed and pressed his face back against my neck. I was hoping it wasn't a dream. A smile tugged at the corner of my lips. It wasn't. We didn't have grand declarations that morning. No sudden decisions, no labels. We just existed, in the same space, closer than we'd ever been. Two people quietly navigating something brand new and terrifying and wonderful. Later, over coffee, I watched Jake standing in my kitchen, bare-chested, hair a mess, like it was the most normal thing in the world. But I saw the shift in his eyes, the way he looked at me differently now. Like I wasn't just his best friend anymore. Like I was something more. Even if neither of us had the words for it yet. Over the next few weeks, we didn't tell anyone. We didn't need to. What we had was ours, quiet, still forming, private. There were moments of awkwardness, sure, when he'd hesitate before reaching for my hand, or when I'd worry he was second-guessing everything, but he never pulled away. If anything, he leaned in more. He started crashing at my place more often, teasing me with kisses on the back of my neck, wrapping his arms around me on the couch like he'd always belonged there. He still called me his best friend, but sometimes he said it in this quiet, reverent tone, like it meant something entirely new. And sometimes, late at night, in the soft hush between dreams, he'd reach for me under the covers and whisper, "I still don't know what this is, but I know it feels right." And I'd whisper back, "That's enough for now," because it was. Love doesn't always arrive with certainty. It doesn't always come with a label or perfect timing. Sometimes it disguises itself as friendship, layers itself in fear, and only reveals its true shape when you're finally brave enough to let it. That night in the shower didn't change everything because of what happened. It changed everything because it opened the door to something we'd both been too afraid to name. And now? Now we're not afraid anymore. So, that's my story with Jake. And yeah, we're still figuring things out, still walking this unfamiliar but beautiful road together. If you've made it this far, I want to thank you for listening. And I'd really love to hear from you. Do you have any advice for us, any thoughts or words you'd like to share? Feel free to leave them in the comments. It means more than you know. Thank you.